Hello and welcome to the Manifesting a New Life TV show. My name is Patricia LeBlanc and I'm your host. I'm really excited for today's show because I have an amazing guest. Hello, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Adina Laver. Adina is the CEO and Chief Curiosity Officer of Courage to Be Curious, a distinctive personal development company dedicated to enhancing the quality and potential of the human experience by inspiring and empowering those on the path to brilliance to act courageously and live authentically. Having thought for most of her life that she was hopelessly erratic and chronically fickle, hopping from interest to interest, academic pursuit to academic pursuit, job to job, and even country to country for a while, Adina finally realized that she was not indecisive, but rather insatiably curious. She is an explorer and grower and is passionate about sharing the power of these traits with others in ways that empower them to achieve the quality of life that they are seeking. Thank you so much, Adina, for coming on the show and welcome. I'm so excited to have you as one of my guests today.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm so excited to be here and grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I love the topic that you put, the courage to be magnificently imperfect, because that's so important. So let's just right into the interview because we have quite a bit of content to cover. So, what does it mean to be magnificently imperfect for you?
You know, Patricia, having grown up as one of those type A personalities and high achieving and needing to get everything right, it dawned on me at one point what an incredible burden this was. And, you know, the times when things wouldn't work out and the pressure that would occur and things like that. And I'm sure we'll go more into it. But at one point, I remember, I think it came through my coach training program, is I really learned to identify that there was no such thing as perfect or imperfect, right? There was only our perception of it. And this idea of we could allow things to be magnificently imperfect, meaning the beauty in the imperfection, that the cracks are the places where the things really happen, that if we could embrace the idea of magnificently imperfect, how much stronger our relationships would be, how much happier we would be, and probably how much better what we produced would be.
I so agree, and I love it because, I mean, for me also, I'm a type A personality and all that. So when I realized that it was okay for me to be imperfectly myself, that's when I was able to start taking action. Because we want everything to be super perfect before we take action, and that's not good. So I really love that. How did you discover the magnificence in imperfection?
You know, it was very funny. There was, I had alluded to the fact that I had taken a coach training program. And in this particular coach training program, we were taught to kind of look at any situation from multiple perspectives, and we called them levels of energy. So how could you experience anything from different levels of energy? And I had just learned about this, and then I was going into a really big meeting with the superintendent of a pretty prominent school district and his whole cabinet. And I was coming in and I was going to do a workshop with them, and I'm sitting outside waiting to go in, and I'm reviewing the materials that I brought. And as I look down, I see, of course, like this typo, right? And here I am. And not only is it a typo, but I'm walking into the superintendent's office of a school district, right? And I started to get that flushed feeling like, oh my God. And the first thing that started to happen, of course, like, what could I do? Was there any place to reprint and to fix? And I mean, would I start making myself crazy? And then thankfully, I caught myself in that moment. And I said, what did you just learn about in your coach training program? And so I sat there and I took myself through a series of questions, and I asked myself, you know, okay, one response is to feel like this horrible victim, like I'm here for this big thing and now I've screwed up and I'm no good and everything's going to fall apart for me. And, you know, I drew out that story and I said, okay, well, that's that story. And then I kept going from different perspectives, and there was a perspective on being angry, and I could be angry with myself. I could be angry with our whole school system that expected perfection in spelling when spelling really wasn't that important. And, you know, and I kind of traveled up these 6 to 7 different perspectives that I'd been trained in. And finally, by the time I got to this place, I was like, you know, how magnificent it would be to go in there and have the opportunity for us to all experience the imperfection together. Like what it raised up in us, how it was instructive, how it was part of the natural order of things, what it would be like to be a student with all of that. And like what an incredibly magnificent experience we could have together should this imperfection be exposed. And that was really like this pivotal moment of embracing the idea of magnificently imperfect, because our perception of imperfect is just a perception. It's only whatever story we attribute to it. And if we suddenly could attribute this story of magnificence, opportunity of like what could arise, it could be transformative. And that was a really pivotal moment for me.
I can imagine it would, especially when you're seeing it in that perspective, how it can really help you. So I really love everything you said. Why do you think is embracing magnificently imperfect is really essential for success?
You know, I think that when we have this drive to be perfect, or when we believe that our success and our worthiness is tied to our perfection, I think we're like done before we start. Because it's a foregone conclusion that no matter who you are and how well trained you are and how well prepared you are, you're never going to have it all come out in this illusion that we've created of perfection. Meaning there will never be a typo, or everything will always go as planned, or all of those things. So we're setting ourselves up for definitive failure if we remain attached to this idea of what we think perfect is. And, you know, as somebody who has always been a high achiever and gets a lot of things right, I remember when I started in my business saying, and this came from listening to Elizabeth Gilbert in her book, Big Magic. And she talks about this lesson that her mother taught her, which is done is better than good. And that really just completing something is way more than what a lot of people do. And so whether it's fantastic, it wins awards, it doesn't win awards, just getting it done is a huge accomplishment. And I remember, you know, kind of saying, what if I just take that on? What if I take it on and, you know, somebody points out a proofreading error to me? Well, figure out how you're going to respond to that, but don't not send things out because you might have an error in it. Or, you know, are you going to always say the right thing? Of course you're not always going to say the right thing. So just know what you're going to do when you realize you stuck your foot in your mouth, and keep moving. And, you know, I think that to be successful at all is to be able to embrace our human fallibility, our human imperfection, our humanity in every single way, and just keep going, because in the words of Liz Gilbert's mother, done is better than good.
And I love that saying, done is better than good, because for me, I used to never take action because everything had to be perfect. And of course, nothing is ever perfect. The only thing that's perfect, you're gonna have to pay tax, and that's the only thing. So to me, it was like, okay, I have to start just doing done is better than good, because. And when I start taking action, and then you learn from your mistakes and you get better, you accomplish so much more. And that's when success really starts. Because if you wait for everything to be perfect, you're not going to get success. Because in order for me to succeed, you need to fail a lot. So if you don't do anything, you can't fail, so you can't succeed. So I really love it. The done is better than good, because that to me was like, wow, it's so true. I wish I would have had that like when I first started out, because I'd probably be a lot more ahead, but my journey is my journey, right? So,
and I just want to add this one piece that, like, I was in the car with somebody one day, and I had put out this promotional piece, and I had printed 1,500 of them, and they were spread out all over the place, and then they were spread out on the internet in electronic form to thousands of more people. And, you know, after I'd done all that, I realized I had missed a grammatical thing. There was something that was really awkward, and it was like right in the tagline on the postcard. And I was like, wow, that is really interesting. You know, it was something that could have had me totally cringing, and for a second I did. And then I was like, all right, it's done, so don't spend another minute like worrying about it. And then I was sitting in the car with somebody who just, you know, we had a great conversation. She was talking to me about the thing that the card was promoting, and then she just very casually said to me, so, you know, who does your proofreading for your materials? And I knew exactly what she was referring to. And, you know, I said to her, I'm so glad you raised that, because you know what? I noticed there was an error on there. And the one thing I love now about having things like errors that pop up in my stuff is that sometimes people look at those of us like you who've published books and me who's published materials and has videos and has blogs and websites, and they can put us up on pedestals, right? You know, and if we're on a pedestal, it means that somebody else is lower down. And that's not healthy for anybody, because we can only fall off of the pedestal and they can only feel small. And what I said to her is, I love when these things happen, because I think it's an amazing equalizer. Like, it doesn't have to be my wounds and my vulnerabilities and my cracks can show, which gives permission for everyone else to show theirs. And she turned to me and she smiled and she said, I love that.
And it's powerful. I just got goosebumps. So it's really powerful. And it's so true, because I mean, we all make mistakes. I've had people, when I start doing videos, oh my God, you're so perfect. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I could count you all my flaws and all my whatever. But it's so true. When we make mistakes, you just embrace it instead of, oh my God, beat yourself up. Because we're human. At the end of the day, we're human. We're all going to make some mistakes. And I, to me, one of my mentors used to say, it's better to take imperfect action than no action at all. So if you make a mistake, I mean, I love your response coming back, because a lot of people would have been freaking out, like, oh my God, I have an error or whatever. But I just love how you were just able to just jump in and able to answer and not brush it off, but kind of come up with a really good answer. So I really love that.
And I would love if we could even take the word mistake out of our vocabulary. Like, did I make a mistake there? And what I actually did is I put out the best that was available for me to put out in that moment. Like, given how much attention span I had, how much time I had, how much proofreading capability I had, I put out absolutely the best piece of work that was available to me in that moment. And so what if it were not a mistake? What if it were just the best, you know, piece of work that was available to me in that moment? And in the next moment, it might be a different kind of work that was available to me. But if we stop thinking of them as mistakes, we wouldn't even have to have the burden of perfection or imperfection, because we would just see it as what was the best that was available to me in that moment.
And I love that, because to me, I mean, I don't really use the word mistake, but it's just a learning experience. You learn from it, and it's like, okay, next time I should maybe get somebody else to proofread it or whatever. So yeah, so I mean, mistakes I find helps makes, oh my God, I need to be perfect. And really, nobody's perfect. So you might as well just embrace being, I always say, I'm imperfectly myself.
Yeah.
There's no one else like me. So, and I just love that. Adina, how are you magnificently imperfect in your business?
You know, I think, well, some of the things, like certainly putting out materials that haven't been proofread. And it was interesting because when that one came up, and I did briefly, like for about 30 seconds, beat myself up. And when I got comments and emails, I thought to myself, well, should I get a proofreader? Like, and I actually had somebody who'd proofread other materials. And then I thought, am I prepared right now to pay extra money in this moment to have somebody proofread so that everything goes out without error? And I thought to myself, like, no, if I prioritize all the places I could invest my resources right now, that was not going to be one of them. And I said, well, actually, maybe the opportunity is the more imperfection, the more opportunity for open dialogue there is. So I think certainly in the things that I write, there's opportunity for that. I know that in the work I do is in coaching. I mean, any of us who do service work, whether you're a therapist or you're a coach or you're a healer or you're a doctor, you know, we're all going to step away from an encounter at, you know, more than once in our life and say, I wonder if that was the best move in that moment. I wonder if that was the best service, or wow, that really felt like that was not the best service I could have given. And if we go down that path too far, we will stop giving service. We will tell ourselves the story that unless my service is perfect, I shouldn't be giving service. So I'll stop until I can reach perfection. And that's ridiculous. You know, I mean, and it's ridiculous because what it means is that we're holding back all the gifts that we have to bring forward in the world, waiting for a sense of perfection, when even our 50%, sometimes I like to tell my clients, even your 50% is delivering so much value. Like, you don't even have to be 90% there, 50% there. You are offering so much value to somebody who can benefit from what you have to bring, that by withholding it, you are doing yourself and the universe and everybody you could serve a tremendous disservice. And so I think in my business, it's just keep going. Do not let these things. Find your response when someone points out a typo, or figure out a really good way to come back and have an honest dialogue if you feel that the service you delivered was perhaps not in the greatest benefit of your client or, your child or whatever it is. Learn how to make apologies or have honest, vulnerable conversations, because that will get you further than holding back what you have to offer until you get it right.
I totally agree with you with that, because a lot of times we beat ourselves up, but really it's just acknowledge it and move forward. Like, don't let it beat you up, because if you let it beat you up, you're on an energetic level. You're going to lower your energy, and you're going to you're going to attract a lot less good things in your life. So yeah, just acknowledge it and just move on from it, release it instead of beating ourselves up, which we have a tendency to do. So I really love that.
And I've gotten really good at going back and having conversations with somebody when I felt like I didn't do something that was, perhaps they would have seen as the best service or something like that. And of course, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, I'm trying to think if there was an exception somewhere, their perception of it was never the same as mine. It was just my story, but it actually did not match with their perception at all. And even times when things felt like they got rough or difficult or didn't go well, actually sometimes those were the things that had the greatest benefit. They broke through, they penetrated through something. And so we always also need to remember that our perception of something not going well is not necessarily the perception of people who are on the other side. And so we have to check it out. So I've just decided to get really good at having those conversations. And I think if you know what your responses can be when you don't feel like something's gone well or there was a mistake or whatever we want to say, it's the response that we can put energy into working on, rather than all the energy that just drains out, as you said, by beating ourselves up.
Yeah, and we're so good as females to beat ourselves up because everything has to be perfect. But really, when I've just realized, I'm going to make mistakes, and it's part of life, and I'm not going to let that stop taking action. Well, to me, that's when success really starts happening. So I really like how you cover the whole topic. Adina, what strategies can you offer entrepreneurs and business owners who want to embrace being magnificently imperfect?
So one strategy I would love for people to take on is think about something that really hits you hard. Like for me, if it was, proofreading errors, or if it was times you feel like you've put your foot in your mouth, or, whatever, like pick out one or two of those things that feel like they cause you the greatest amount of shame or stop you in your tracks. And now ask yourself, what are at least 5 different ways I could respond to this same situation? We get very locked into thinking that, oh my God, shame, like this happened, and so it causes this response. But the truth is, just like I did when I sat outside that superintendent's office, there is multiple responses that could come forward there. So I always say to my clients, like 5 different ways. What could you do? Someone just pointed out a grammar error, a spelling error on a public piece of writing. What are 5 different ways you could respond? And then pick the one there that you feel like is going to best serve your goals. So I think that's one strategy. And secondly, I would love for every woman, every man, every business owner to say, when something hasn't gone as planned, when something didn't go well, is invest your energy in mastering the art of that conversation. Because there is nothing that brings people into relationship more, that builds a brand in a business, that deepens the connection with clients, with siblings, or with loved ones, or with partners, than being able to have honest conversations. And if you don't know where to start, then that's where you reach out for help. And so just those 2 things, like 1, 5 different responses to something that makes you feel shameful, other than the shamed response, and then the story that you tell yourself. And then the second one is, what would a conversation with someone where I felt like, I tripped up, I made a mistake, I messed up, or whatever, what would it sound like? And when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in that way, we have those conversations, we can come to them honestly, everything in life and business completely transforms.
I agree, and I love those two strategies. So thank you so much for sharing that. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time, Adina. I can't believe how fast the time goes. I guess when you're having fun, time goes by fast. Can you please tell our viewers how they can find you online, or if they want to know more about you, how the best way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. People can find me. I have a website at www.couragetobecurious. It's listed on the bottom third here of the Hangout. And that is where you can find out about me, about the personal development company and coaching and programs that we do. And you'll also see there the link to our podcast, which is called Wonder Your Way to Brilliant. And it really is stopping, looking at things that are happening and saying, what might they look like from another perspective? Wondering about ourselves, wondering about what we do and how we do it. So I'd love for people to check out Wonder Your Way to Brilliant and to come check us out. You can find me at couragetobecurious.com, and my email is Adina, Adina, as it's written below, at couragetobecurious.com.
So thank you so much, Adina, for being a guest on the Manifesting a New Life TV show. Viewers, I hope you've really enjoyed today's show, because it's been a blessing for me to interview Adina Laver. So thank you so much for listening. My name is Patricia, LeBlanc, your host, and I look forward to speaking to you next week when I'll have another amazing guest. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you next week.